The war had raged for decades. Humanity, once confident in its dominance, found itself on the brink of extinction. The alien invaders, known only as the Arkrill, had emerged from the farthest reaches of the galaxy with technology that far outclassed anything Earth had ever seen. But humanity was stubborn. They adapted, innovated, and fought back with every ounce of determination they had left. In the heart of one of the last standing military bases on Earth, Base Echo, a group of scientists and military strategists prepared for their final gamble, a new war simulation that could turn the tide in their favor. Commander Jareth Cole, a man with a mind as sharp as the steel blade he always carried, stood at the head of the briefing table. His piercing blue eyes scanned the group before him. "We don't have much time," he began, his voice low but steady. "The Arkrill have advanced to our final defense perimeter. If we don't stop them here, it's over. But we're not giving up. We have one last weapon, our minds." Beside him, Dr. Cashen Locke, a tactical genius who had spent his career blending human intellect with cutting-edge technology, activated the holographic display. "What you're about to see is the culmination of years of work. A battlefield simulation that not only predicts enemy movements, but adapts to them in real time. It's not just a tool. It's a game changer." The hologram shifted, revealing a massive Arkrill mothership descending on Earth. Cashen's voice was calm, almost too calm, as he continued. "We've built a neural network system that plugs directly into the minds of our top strategists. Each decision, each move, every piece of data, processed and simulated faster than any Arkrill AI can react." Among the small team gathered around the table were three of Earth's finest military minds, Major Kalen Rook, Lieutenant Vesper Quinn, and Captain Darian Harlow. Each of them had their own unique skills, and together they had been dubbed the Triad, the three who could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast any alien strategist. Jareth turned to face them. "This simulation will be your battlefield. Every tactic you devise, every command you give, will be fed into the system and replicated on the actual battlefield. We'll be running in parallel with the war outside these walls. You'll control the battle from here. The future of humanity rests on your decisions." Major Rook, the eldest of the three and a veteran of countless battles, crossed his arms. "How do we know the simulation will keep up with the chaos out there? War is unpredictable. No system can predict the mind of the enemy." Cashen smiled faintly. "That's where you come in. The system isn't meant to predict. It's meant to adapt. Every action the enemy takes will be counted in real time based on the tactics you three develop inside the simulation. The system learns from you. It's designed to mirror your thinking patterns, your instincts." Vesper Quinn, a tactical prodigy known for her unorthodox methods, raised an eyebrow. "So it's an extension of us. We feed it, and it fights back. What happens if we make a mistake?" Jareth answered before Cashen could. "Then we all die." The team was taken to a large chamber deep within the base, its walls lined with advanced computing systems and neural interfaces. Each strategist was fitted with a neural link, connecting their minds directly to the simulation. The room dimmed, and the battle for Earth began. The simulation started with a vast battlefield, a perfect replica of the war zone outside. Massive Arkrill war machines thundered across desolate landscapes, while human forces scrambled to hold the line. The Triad stood in the center of it all, observing the chaos from a tactical vantage point. Rook stepped forward, his voice commanding. "Deploy the remaining artillery to the eastern front. If we can slow their advance, we'll buy time for reinforcements." Quinn's eyes darted across the battlefield, her mind racing through possibilities. "No, the eastern front is a diversion. They're probing our defenses. The real attack is coming from the north. See those carriers? They're preparing for an aerial assault." Captain Harlow, calm as ever, nodded in agreement. She's right. They're testing us. Redirect air support to the northern sector. I'll coordinate the ground forces to handle the decoy. In the real world, human forces moved according to their commands. Air units were scrambled, artillery repositioned. The Arkrill, realizing their deception had been uncovered, shifted tactics. But the Triad was always one step ahead. Enemy reinforcements inbound, Locke's voice echoed in their minds. They've adapted. Get ready. The simulation flickered, adjusting to the new Arkrill strategy. Alien fighters appeared in the sky, descending with terrifying speed. On the ground, massive Arkrill tanks began to advance, their energy weapons cutting through human defenses. Rook clenched his fists. They're hitting us from both sides. We need to split our forces. Wrong, Quinn interjected, her mind racing. We focus on one front. If we spread too thin, they'll crush us. Hit the northern front with everything we have. Draw them in. Once they're committed, we collapse their flank. The plan was executed flawlessly. As the Arkrill poured their forces into the northern assault, the human forces unleashed a devastating counterattack, collapsing their flank and leaving the alien invaders exposed. Harlow grinned as he watched the simulation unfold. They fell for it. Now let's finish this. But just as victory seemed within reach, the simulation suddenly shifted. A new fleet of Arkrill ships appeared on the horizon, far larger and more advanced than anything they had faced before. As the last of the Arkrill forces were destroyed, silence fell over the battlefield. The war, for now, was over. Jareth, standing in the control room with Cashen, watched as the simulation ended. "We did it," he whispered. Cashen nodded, his face pale. "For now. But they'll be back. And next time, we'll be ready." The Triad removed their neural links, their bodies exhausted but their minds sharp. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The skies over Earth darkened with the shadow of the Arkrill's ultimate fleet. Massive, ominous ships hovered like celestial predators, ready to strike the final blow. On the ground, human forces were battered, their numbers dwindling, their defenses crumbling. But they had one advantage left: the brilliant minds of the Triad and the war simulation that had kept them one step ahead until now. Commander Jareth Cole stood at the window of Base Echo, his gaze locked on the approaching alien armada. His fingers traced the scar across his cheek, a reminder of the battles that had brought them here. Behind him, Dr. Cashen Locke worked furiously on the simulation console, the glow of the holographic display illuminating his sharp features. "They're preparing for a full-scale invasion," Jareth said, his voice low but steady. Cashen nodded without looking up. "They've learned from their mistakes. The Arkrill's final fleet is faster, more adaptive, and equipped with technology we haven't seen before. We can't rely on the same tactics. Then we don't. We fight smarter." The Triad, Major Kalen Rook, Lieutenant Vesper Quinn, and Captain Darian Harlow, entered the room, each bearing the weight of the war on their shoulders. Their neural links had been removed, but the battle in their minds continued. Quinn spoke first. "We can't win a straight-up fight. Even with the simulation, they're going to overwhelm us." Rook crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "Then what's the plan? We've already stretched our forces thin, holding them off this long." Jareth turned to face them. "We hit them where they least expect it. The simulation won us battles, but now we're going to turn it into a weapon." Harlow's eyes narrowed. "You want to use the simulation as a weapon?" Cashen looked up from his console. "It's not impossible. The simulation system is powerful enough to control every defense system we have. If we overload it, we can create a controlled energy burst, enough to disrupt the Arkral systems. But it comes with a risk. The risk being? Rook asked, already knowing the answer. Cashin hesitated. It could take out base echo in the process. A heavy silence fell over the room. This was it, the final gamble. There would be no second chances. Quinn's gaze was steady as she looked at the team. We knew it would come to this. If we don't stop them here, there won't be an Earth left to defend. Jareth stepped forward, his voice resolute. We're not sacrificing this base unless we have to. But if it comes down to it, we won't hesitate. Every moment we hold them off gives us a better chance to execute the plan. We need to prepare. The base hummed with tense energy as soldiers and engineers scrambled to fortify their positions. The Arkral fleet had begun its slow, ominous descent toward the surface, their massive warships casting long shadows across the ruined landscape. The Triad, now back in the simulation chamber, reconnected their neural links. The simulation room felt colder this time, the weight of what was to come pressing on their minds. Cashin's voice came over the comms. We've synchronized the simulation to the real battlefield. Every move you make will be mirrored out there. As they entered the virtual war zone, the full scale of the Arkral invasion came into view. Dozens of massive ships, brimming with alien soldiers and weaponry, descended toward Earth's surface. The human defenses were scattered, barely holding on. Rook immediately started issuing commands. Divert all available forces to the southern perimeter. The Arkral are trying to break through the weakest point. Quinn's mind raced as she studied the holographic battlefield. No, they're baiting us. The real attack is coming from the east. Look at the troop movements. They're trying to pull our forces away from the defense towers. Harlow nodded. Agreed. Shift the air support to the eastern front. Prepare for a heavy artillery strike. The battlefield adjusted in real time as the human forces moved to counter the Arkral's tactics. Explosions ripped through the air as human artillery pounded the alien forces, but the Arkral adapted quickly, their ships shifting formation to avoid the brunt of the attack. They're learning faster than before, Harlow muttered. We need to hit them harder. Rook's jaw clenched. We're running out of time. In the real world, Jareth stood at the command center, watching the battle unfold on the holographic map. Cashin's fingers flew across the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. We're close, Cashin said, his voice tight with tension. The simulation is building up the energy we need for the burst, but the Arkral are closing in faster than anticipated. Jareth turned to the nearest officer. Get every remaining soldier ready to defend this base. If the Arkral reach us before we activate the burst, it's over. Inside the simulation, the Triad worked with relentless focus. Alien forces swarmed across the battlefield, their tactics evolving with each passing second. But the Triad fought back, their minds linked to the simulation, predicting, adapting, and countering every Arkral move. Suddenly, an alert flashed across the holographic display. A massive Arkral dreadnought, far larger than any ship they had faced before, descended toward Base Echo. Quinn's eyes widened. They're targeting the base directly. If that dreadnought reaches us, we won't survive long enough to activate the burst. Rook cursed under his breath. We need to bring it down now. Harlow's voice was calm but urgent. We don't have the firepower for that. Jareth's voice came through the comms. You do now. A surge of power rippled through the simulation as the final pieces of Cashin's plan fell into place. The simulation's energy output spiked, creating a massive pulse of raw power that surged toward the Arkral dreadnought. The ship's shields flickered, then collapsed entirely as the energy burst overloaded its systems. The dreadnought faltered, its engines sputtering as it began to descend in a slow, uncontrolled fall. "Now!" Jareth shouted over the comms. "Hit them with everything we've got." In both the simulation and reality, the human forces unleashed a full-scale assault. Every missile, every laser, every bullet was aimed at the vulnerable Archral forces. The dreadnought exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its remains raining down on the battlefield. Back in the command center, Jareth watched as the last of the Archral ships fell from the sky. The holographic map cleared, signaling the end of the invasion. "We did it," Cashin whispered, barely able to believe it. Jareth exhaled slowly. "We held the line." The Triad disconnected from the simulation, their bodies exhausted but their minds triumphant. As they stood in the chamber, watching the final remnants of the Archral fleet burn in the atmosphere, they knew the cost of the victory was high. But they had won. Humanity had survived. For now. Quinn, her eyes still on the horizon, spoke softly. "They'll be back." Rook nodded. "And we'll be ready." Jareth's voice cut through the tension, a note of finality in his words. "We've bought ourselves time, and time is all we need." As the sun set over the war-torn earth, the surviving soldiers cheered. It was a hard-fought victory, but one that proved, in the end, that no matter how advanced the enemy's technology, there was no substitute for human resolve. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.